With rumours swirling of a new Nintendo console coming next year, it seems like the Switch is in the final part of its life cycle. But Nintendo is showing no signs of slowing down the game releases, and its teams are giving the Switch a killer swan song, with Tears of the Kingdom earlier in the year, Super Mario Wonder and Super Mario RPG Remake on the horizon, and now Pikmin 4. And if you can't guess where this is going by the way I'm introducing it in the same breath as Zelda and Mario, yes, Pikmin 4 is great. In such a stacked year, it could be easy to overlook a game like Pikmin 4, but by doing so, you'd be missing out on one of the best games you can play on the Switch in 2023. Filled with clever level design and an abundance of content, Pikmin 4 is a game that masterfully blends different genres to create the definitive Pikmin experience. I've been a fan of Pikmin since the first game way back on the GameCube. I vividly remember playing Pikmin as a kid and being completely enamoured with it, as at the time I'd never played anything like it before, and even now, over 20 years later, Pikmin still stands out as one of the most unique series in Nintendo's sizable stable of first-party franchises. If you've never played a Pikmin game before, they're almost like a blend of an action-adventure game and a real-time strategy game. In them, you control a little explorer who interacts with the world by throwing out tiny creatures called Pikmin, who you cultivate like plants by bringing pellets back to your ship to grow new Pikmin, with both the Pikmin and the explorer being minuscule beings in a massive world. Think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Grounded. Pikmin can fight and carry things for you, and like ants, while they're fairly weak individually, when they work together as a group, they can carry objects that dwarf them in size. Pikmin's gameplay revolves entirely around having your army of Pikmin collect things for you, so if you're like me and you love a good collectathon, Pikmin will be right up your alley, as it really scratches that itch to collect things that seemingly exists within nearly every gamer. In Pikmin 4, your goal is to gather shiny objects, which serve as fuel for your ship, and once you've collected enough, you'll be able to move on to the next location. Most of these objects are common household items like fruits, toys, and trinkets like forks, but there are also plenty of fun novelty items like the parts to build a Gundam-like model kit or the pieces of a puzzle. There's also a ton of Nintendo products to collect, like Joy-Cons, a Game Boy Advance SP, a GameCube disc, and an NES controller. Because so many of the collectible items are cool, unique novelties, I didn't leave any area until I had 100%ed it, so this was the rare Nintendo game that I found every collectible in. I normally only feel compelled to hunt down every last collectible in PlayStation games due to my borderline unhealthy obsession with trophies. I'm usually content with just playing through Switch and Xbox games normally, doing only the side content that catches my eye. But I felt compelled to see what every collectible here was, because there are so many interesting and downright bizarre inclusions in Pikmin 4. When you're out and about hunting for treasure, you'll also want to keep your eyes peeled for bulbs in the environment that will increase the amount of Pikmin you can have with you at any given time by 10. Pikmin 4 largely follows a similar structure to other Pikmin games. Each day, you'll go out and explore an area freely until sundown, at which point you'll want to gather all of your Pikmin and return to your ship before nightfall, because any stragglers left behind after dark will be lost forever. Though unlike earlier entries in the series, you have no time limit in Pikmin 4. You're free to take your time and explore the environments over as many days as you'd like. Of course, collecting your treasures won't always be as simple as it sounds. Your progress will be impeded by obstacles like sprinklers and broken bridges that you'll need your trusty Pikmin and a healthy amount of raw materials that you've gathered in the environment to solve. Pikmin can use these materials to rebuild bridges, build climbable walls, and even craft clay valves to turn off sprinklers. But the main obstacle you'll have to contend with when gathering treasure is that Pikmin 4's environments are teeming with enemies ready to gobble up your Pikmin. To defeat these creatures, you'll need to throw a bunch of your Pikmin at them so they can swarm and overwhelm them. At this point, you'll even be able to gather these defeated enemies and bring them back to your ship so that they can be used to create more Pikmin. While just tossing Pikmin at enemies could be mindless, the strategy comes from knowing when you need to call your Pikmin back before the enemy attacks. Pikmin aren't very durable, so you can lose dozens of Pikmin in a single hit from a strong enemy. You'll also need to know which Pikmin are best suited for the fight at hand. You see, there are various types of Pikmin, each with their own special abilities. Red Pikmin are your standard all-rounders. They're decent fighters and are also resistant to fire. Yellow Pikmin are lighter than other Pikmin and can therefore be thrown further. They can also dig faster and are impervious to electricity, which allows them to break down electrified barriers that will electrocute all your other Pikmin. Blue Pikmin can breathe underwater, so they can collect treasures from the bottom of puddles and lakes. Ice Pikmin can freeze their opponents, or even entire bodies of water, so that all your other Pikmin can walk across safely. Rock Pikmin are stronger than other Pikmin types, and can be used to shatter crystal walls. The pink winged Pikmin, as you would probably guess, can fly, allowing them to carry items over gaps and fight flying enemy types that are harder to hit with other Pikmin. White Pikmin are immune to poison, meaning they can destroy sources of poisonous gas to make the area safe for your explorer and your other Pikmin. And finally, purple Pikmin have the weight and strength of 10 other Pikmin, making them essential to collect some of the heavier treasures in Pikmin 4. Destroying certain eggs or enemies will spill nectar, which when consumed by Pikmin will cause them to mature into their advanced form, allowing them to move much faster, with the leaf atop these Pikmin's heads blooming into a flower to differentiate them from their unevolved counterparts. While Pikmin 4's normal enemy encounters are fun, if not a little simple, where its combat truly shines is in Pikmin 4's creative boss battles that force you to use the abilities of different Pikmin in tandem. For instance, there's a boss early on who has a gelatinous outer layer that you need to freeze and shatter with your ice Pikmin to expose the weak spot inside that your other Pikmin can damage. And while I won't spoil it of course, I particularly loved the way Pikmin 4's lengthy final boss fight forces you to take advantage of your different Pikmin's various immunities. My only complaint with Pikmin 4's boss fights is that there just aren't enough of them. There are a decent amount of boss fights in Pikmin 4, but they were so good that I still could have gone for a few more. If you make a catastrophic mistake in a fight and lose too many Pikmin, you'll be given the option to rewind time to an earlier point in the day. While I never used this option personally, because it kinda felt like cheating, and also because Pikmin 4 is easy enough that I never felt like I was actually at risk of running out of Pikmin, it is nice that the option is there to make Pikmin 4 more approachable for younger players. While much of Pikmin 4 will feel immediately familiar to returning players, it also introduces some big new changes to the series. The first of which you'll be greeted with almost immediately after starting Pikmin 4, the character creator. In Pikmin 4, longtime series protagonist Olimar is missing, and it's up to you to find him and several other shipwrecked adventurers. So instead of playing as a set explorer like you did in the first 3 Pikmin games, in Pikmin 4 you'll create and customize your own avatar who's a member of the Rescue Corps. Though the character creator is very rudimentary, so don't expect too much variety. It essentially boils down to a few different body types, faces, hairstyles, and colour schemes. Arguably the biggest change in terms of gameplay in Pikmin 4 is that throughout your adventure you'll be joined by not only your army of Pikmin, but also a dog-like creature called Oatchi. Oatchi can use his excellent sense of smell to lead you to treasure and lost explorers. He can charge through barriers that are blocking your path, and you can even ride around atop Oatchi's back to save time when navigating a big map, or when you need to jump over obstacles that your explorer wouldn't be able to clear on foot. Oatchi can also be commanded like a Pikmin, and given orders to fight, dig, and carry things back to your ship. though he's certainly much stronger than any Pikmin. As Oatchi assists you in missions, he'll level up his pup drive, rewarding you with points that can be used to have Oatchi's trainer back at your home base, teach him new abilities, and upgrade his skills to make him more efficient in the field. You can upgrade his dig speed, his strength in battle, and even the capacity he can carry. Once you max out his strength, Oatchi will be able to carry the same amount of weight as 100 Pikmin. At any point, you can freely switch between controlling your Explorer and Oatchi, which you'll need to do to solve some of Pikmin 4's more inventive puzzles that require you to separate your Explorer and Oatchi. Sometimes there are tunnels that only Oatchi can squeeze through, or other times you'll need to leave Oatchi with a switch so that he can flip it on and off to raise and lower barriers while you explore a maze as your adventurer. Another big new addition to the series in Pikmin 4 is nighttime expeditions. For the longest time, setting foot outside of your home base after sundown has been a total no-go in Pikmin. You gather your Pikmin before the end of the day, then don't return until morning. But in Pikmin 4, there's a brand new style of mission that can only be accessed at night. These nighttime expeditions offer a different style of gameplay than the daytime exploration. Instead of having you explore and gather treasure, the nighttime missions play more like a tower defense game, with you guarding a base until sunrise against waves of powerful red-eyed enemies that are descending upon it. During these missions, you'll only have access to one type of Pikmin, the nocturnal glow Pikmin. While I think these missions probably seemed like a good idea on paper as a way to add some additional variety to Pikmin 4, they are extremely repetitive and overly easy, so I was grateful that the vast majority of nighttime expeditions are optional, because at a certain point I just stopped doing the nighttime expeditions altogether. They just started to feel like a chore that was wasting my time and preventing me from getting back to the core Pikmin gameplay that I enjoy so much. A principle that's brought up frequently in Pikmin 4 is dandori, a Japanese term for the art of using good organisational skills to tackle tasks as efficiently as possible. And nowhere is this concept more important than in Pikmin 4's dandori battles. In these challenges, you'll be dropped into an arena filled with enemies and treasure worth varying amounts of points, and pitted against an opponent to see who can earn the most points within a limited time frame. Unlike the nighttime missions, these battles actually do provide a great change of pace, and force you to strategize to a degree you wouldn't normally have to when exploring the overworld maps at your own pace, as you're constantly trying to figure out what treasures to prioritize to rack up the most points, and looking for opportunities to snag an opponent's treasure off them when their Pikmin are carrying it back to their home base. Managing your time more efficiently becomes easier throughout Pikmin 4, thanks in no small part to the gadgets you can build at the lab back at your home base with any excess materials you've collected. These craftable items include new types of armour for both your Explorer and Oatchi, and a device that will call all your currently idle Pikmin back to you, so you don't have any stragglers standing around doing nothing. Pikmin 4 is easily the most content-rich Pikmin game we've gotten yet. I spent 37 hours with Pikmin 4, which is probably longer than the combined runtime of the first 3 Pikmin games together. The maps you explore in Pikmin 4 are incredibly dense, filled with treasures to collect, shortcuts to unlock, dandori battles, and caves, dungeon-like locations that consist of multiple levels filled with collectibles, puzzles, and enemy encounters. Then there are the nighttime expeditions, and then there's even one more bonus mode called Olimar's Tales, in which you play as longtime series protagonist Olimar as he regales your created character with the story of what happened to him in the lead up to Pikmin 4. Olimar's Tales plays more like classic Pikmin. You'll be playing with a time limit, just like you would in the original Pikmin games, and it's even focused on gathering ship parts, like Pikmin 1 was. One gripe I have with Pikmin 4, and many Nintendo games for that matter, is that in the early hours of the game, Pikmin 4 has a bad habit of getting in its own way a little bit. The beginning portion is very talky and hand-holdy. I wish Nintendo games would offer you a way to speed up this process. This is the 4th mainline Pikmin game, and I've played the first 3. I don't need you to run me through the basics, just the new mechanics. Let me skip over the lengthy tutorials. This is the same problem I've long had with the Pokemon series. I've been playing those games since I was literally 6 years old. I don't need to be shown how to catch a Pokemon again in each new entry. While this problem is at its worst early on, Pikmin 4 does keep slowing you down throughout the entire game. Every day you have to go through the same routine of watching the end of day cutscene, getting a loading screen as you head back to your home base, then choosing to go back to the location you were just at, sitting through a second loading screen, then watching another brief cutscene of your character arriving at their destination. This routine just takes a bit too long and breaks up the flow of gameplay. I wish that at the end of each day, you had the choice of whether you want to return to your home base, or just head straight back out into the location you're already in at sunrise. Something I've always loved about Pikmin is how visually distinct it is. Its strange bug-like enemies are so iconic, the Pikmin are adorable, and the unique perspective of seeing household objects look gigantic because you're tiny while exploring backyards and even houses still feels novel. If you've seen any of my reviews of Switch games in recent times, you've more than likely heard me talk about how the Switch is showing its age due to some significant visual and performance issues in recent games. Thankfully, Pikmin 4 is largely free of these problems, and I'd go as far as to say it's a great looking game, maybe even among the best on the Switch. But there is one complaint I do have with Pikmin 4 on a technical level, and that's how long its loading screens can be. Maybe I've just become spoiled by the SSDs in the PS5 and Series X, but while playing Pikmin 4, I felt like I was sitting in loading screens forever. 2023 is not only one of the best years in gaming in general, it's also destined to go down as one of the best years for the Nintendo Switch. Probably even its best year since 2017, and Pikmin 4 is certainly part of the reason for that. With its addictive gameplay loop that scratches the collecting itch, immaculate level design, and abundance of content, Pikmin 4 is the biggest, most ambitious, and best Pikmin game yet. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. You can find countless other reviews on my channel, including my recent review of Final Fantasy XVI, and be sure to stay tuned for my upcoming reviews of Mortal Kombat 1 and Starfield.